Hi,
We're back.
did you miss us? I know, it's been a minute. We
Dang it.
apologize for the delay, but actually, no, we
We
really
don't.
don't need to apologize.
We don't.
We've been
Is
unionizing. Yes, we
that a
got our
word?
union cards and
Do we
everything
charge
else.
dues for that?
It feels
Unionizing.
like it. It feels like it. But thank you guys all for joining us again
Mhm.
for another session or episode of our twin flame journey. Um, we've really given some thought to a lot of different things about what kinds of answers are needed. And I kind of want to just take a minute before we jump into where we left off because we both know where we left off. And I'll let you speak because, it's going to be kind of her show. Anyway,
Why?
I'm just kidding.
Okay.
But I wanted to, because this keeps coming to me over and over again, there's been some things that we both have been experiencing over the last few weeks as we've gone back and started talking about our journey. Um, and I probably am surprising you with this, but I wanted to talk about it because it just seems to be something that we all need to kind of see when it comes to this connection. This is not a human relationship by any means. So if you're going into this thinking this is the end all be all human relationship that you can experience, like she said, um, it's purpose is part of that to kind of just take you away from all of those things to show you something even more dynamic to what true love is all about. Um, let's talk about true love real quick, and then we'll go right into it.
hmm And don't forget to look at the camera
Yeah,
because
I'm
our friend
sorry.
CJ says we don't look at her.
Hi, CJ.
Just say hi. Hi, CJ.
When it comes to true love, I want you to go back and think about the golden child, the last golden child that was probably on this planet. That was came from twins. Oh, Walt Disney created a bunch of movies that showed you happily ever after. What you did pick up on is that always the hero loved everybody, no matter how evil they were, no matter what they did. They didn't have any conditions. Well, that's the insight into what this is. Whether you can believe it, whether you can feel it, whether you can understand it, or if you just think that there has to be conditions on why you're not together and you're pointing outside, point the finger inside. There is conditions to everything. The reason that this union has to occur is to break those conditions. Once you break those conditions, you're looking at it. So, let's take off where we left off at, shall we?
What kind of face was
It was the reminder of where we gotta go.
I know.
Okay, so
All right.
last I think we talked about in the last episode, it was final. We had both moved on. We had lost our golden child, or maybe not. Who knows? The history's never written. But we had experienced, of course, the deep pain. Um, but we were also no longer together, no longer able to communicate in a very civil manner, if you will, because of
That's putting it lightly.
because of the pain. The
Right.
pain when you endure such a great pain, especially when you become fully conscious of the pain, you realize there are certain.
If you burp, I swear.
Oh, yeah, he went away, and he didn't burp.
Thank God.
Thank you, Mike. So, if you remember, we were talking about, she was seeing somebody, I was seeing somebody. We were both going through some things, and I was completely understanding that now I had, even though I was knew that there was something greater, felt that something was greater. I also knew that I couldn't force it on anybody. That want or that desire was gone. But I did know that I wanted a companion. I wanted somebody that I could be with. I wanted somebody that would be able to share love with me and share being with me. And you had pretty much realized that, okay, somebody can accept me for my truth. Somebody can listen to me and not run from me and not abandon me. Kind of like what I had experienced, only she had experienced it, and she had experienced it in a shorter time.
But what I started doing was interesting. I started drinking excessively and then spilling out my truths and then trying to explain this out of this world connection, this experience, this connection where you can taste what the other's eating and feel what the other's feeling and help heal one another. And it didn't go over at, at all. I spent countless hours trying to tell this guy that it was real. It was real. I promise it's real. I tape recorded our conversations. I don't know why I did that, but I don't know what I was doing. I was just hurt because I had just went through something so detrimental with my twin flame, and he wasn't there for me, and he was with somebody else, and we were both living two lives. I was living this other life, and he was at my house every day, and he was meeting my kids, and it was just something that I knew was a very humanized situation. And then I thought, well, you know what, Sherry, you've done this to yourself. This is your karma for doing the things that you've done to Lee. You are destined to live in this human existence for the rest of your life. Being connected to Lee. There it is.
I was in a relationship where I was content, I was happy, I was fulfilling myself. So I really don't have a better explanation than that, because I wasn't seeing this person every day. I was pretty much alone. I had moved out and moved into a place that
Call it like it is. It was a gated community.
It was a gated community with the name Twin Fountains. Didn't even pay attention really to the name of it, and it had twin lakes, and I was paying attention to that because why would I do such a thing? Or did it just happen that way on purpose? So
I couldn't find him.
No.
I can find anybody.
And even before when I had disappeared after our first connection that you watched in episode 1, my disappearance was something I had pretty much was able to do. Of course, however, I was stationary more now, and she was able to find me.
I wasn't looking, though. That's just it. At that point in time, because of your words and your facial expressions and the way that you were final, I knew it was final. So I didn't have a reason to go chasing or stalking, or because I would have.
But she knew there would be a restraining order.
I really did. And he was just so angry. Understandably, he was angry. And, I was just trying to focus on trying to build this fake life and just be happy. And then
I want to say something about that, because I think that it's important for you and for everybody to understand. I wasn't angry. It was final. When in masculine energy, when something becomes final, and at this point I was heavily in masculine energy, finality means you are no longer tolerating the bullshit anymore. You are no longer tolerating being treated that way anymore. You are no longer, it's almost like your bullshit meter is on 500 strength. And if it comes in the vicinity, nope, you're done. So if you're in this place where you're struggling to figure out what's going on and you have bullshit that you're carrying along with you, don't try to go in that energy field because you'll detect it. Because when you're connected in here with yourself, you know you don't need the bullshit anymore. And that's where I was. Thing was, is I wasn't coming near her to know that there was no more bullshit.
I had come to the place where I didn't have any more skeletons. They had all fallen out when Lee opened the door. And I didn't have anything left to hide. And I'm telling this other guy all my truths because I can. And then I realized he wasn't the one that I really wanted to tell all of my truths. So on occasion, I would email Lee and explain to him about some dreams, some very spiritual journeys I was going on in my dreams. Some, I don't know, some visions I was seeing. And even as I wrote them, I thought, yeah, he's just going to think it's bullshit and then not even pay attention. But I almost wanted to document the journey, but I didn't think that he was getting the messages. But every now and then he would text back something very, very simple and very, very cold and very just final. It was, I don't want to do this. I'm not talking to you type of thing. Being like, okay, that's fine. That's fine. I just wanted to tell you that this was going on with me. And
I think the messages I was sending to her was, we're not connected. Yeah, I was lying. Just going to call it like it is. I was lying because I was connected, but I wasn't connected to the bullshit anymore. Mm-hmm. So being that I couldn't feel from what she was writing or what she was experiencing, because I was still waiting for the truth. I was still expecting that if she did wake up, that's what I would be looking for, is that she would be able to come with her truth. And not being in the energy field, I didn't know if she was being truthful or not. All I had to go on was what I could feel. And what I could feel was no more bullshit. And I couldn't detect anything beyond that. So she's right. I completely would just, it'd be a short message or no message at all. So we'll go forward because this went on for a few weeks.
This went on for
a few months.
Couple
about
months.
2 months.
About two or three months. 2 or 3 months, because at this point in time,
well, I think you had sent an email, and then I was still angry, mm-hmm. but I allowed the communication to continue, which meant that there was a seed planted in, we've always been friends, we've always been able to talk, even though she did all these things. And there are conditions that I'm placing on this. Right. We can have at least a civil conversation. I'm no longer going to bite her head off, because I believe that when I was getting angry, I was only fueling the fire to let her know that I still cared, which is the truth.
And there was some things going on in life, in everyday life, that was going on with me, because I was still in the house that we had rented together, and I had
your daughter.
Yeah.
Her accident.
Yeah. I'd come home, and I was there, and he had left, so I obviously wasn't working. So I was about to lose this house. But what I didn't want to do was tell him that, because I didn't want him to feel in any way, shape, or form that I was needing him financially, because I had...
My name was off the lease, by the way.
Yeah, his name was off the lease. I finally did that.
Yep.
I finally contacted them and said, hey, he's not here. Can we get his name off the lease? Another thing, I don't know if we had mentioned that. Did we mention to them that I went to court? I did go to court and stand up and say, yeah, we did. I did say that.
You get to that.
Okay. But yeah, I was about to be evicted. Now, I'd called the landlord over and we had talked, and he had given me a 2-month extension, and he was wonderful about it. And so I had this guy saying, let me pay this completely off for you, and we'll just stay here, and I'll just keep the rent up, and we'll get it all caught up, and I'll just move my stuff in here, and everything will be wonderful and fun and free. Wow. Yeah. No. No, I wasn't feeling that at all. At all. And there was just a lot going on, and then it was about, I believe it was March. It had to be March or April, somewhere around April. And I'm sitting on the couch and I'm watching the news, and Lee and I not having any conversations at all. And I saw a car wreck on the news, and I knew it was around the area where my daughter traveled to go to her boyfriend's house. And I saw the car, and I had this eerie feeling, and it wasn't her car, but it was a car that was familiar to me. I knew that it was familiar to me, and I got sick to my stomach, and as soon as I saw it, I called Ron and said, I need to get to the hospital. I didn't have a car. I need to get to the hospital. And then my other daughter had texted me and said, hey, that my oldest daughter had been in a really bad car accident. And I didn't know what to do. I got to the hospital, and there was 5 of them in the car, and they were all 5 ejected out of the car. And the driver had been care flighted, and I walked in, and my daughter was, she's a little tiny thing anyway, but she was just so bloody and so tore up, and I thought I was going to lose her, but when I saw her, I knew that she was going to be okay. She was just really tore up, and she had broken her neck and had some things crushed in her neck, and she was in the hospital for 14 days. So for 14 days, I lived pretty much in this hospital, and this other guy would bring me up lunch sometime, but he never would. I never would have him meet my family or anything up there. He did meet my mom and a couple of my kids, but that's it. And but I wouldn't let him come out to the hospital. I pretty much sat up there with her dad and stepmom and her side of the family, and Ron. Obviously, Ron was up there a lot, and his brother came. His brother came and saw her, and it just tore me. It just tore me up. It just tore me up. I couldn't understand why Lee wasn't coming. I couldn't understand why he wasn't coming. I didn't understand.
And for me, the greater part of my anger was still there during that time. And, I had just gotten a message from her that her daughter was in a bad accident. And I don't even know if I really responded, because I didn't know if it was a lie or a truth. It was probably about 2 or 3 days after, when I saw the pictures, that I went, oh. But then at that point, I'd still been disconnected. Everybody talks about being able to pull things out of you that you can disconnect. There's a great deal of pain involved in that if you elect to disconnect from this connection. Yeah, I think over a period of time you can probably just be numb to it, but that doesn't mean you're ever going to be disconnected. And I remember, because I wasn't alone, so I couldn't get up and go, but it was one of those things where I just went, nope, she's good. She's got everybody around her. So it wasn't that.
Right.
Looking back on it now, um, my brother had called me after he had gone, and he called me when he was on his way there, and I said, just make sure they know I'm there. I can't be there. I don't want to give any hope where there is none. Which was, that's just, I was final. I really was very final with it.
She had spent 14 days there, 2 weeks. So,
And it was her and her boyfriend. Actually.
yeah, her boyfriend was really bad. They were in intensive care for 2 weeks. It was just a mess. And so 2 days before she came home, they took her out of intensive care. I never did get that, but she had surgery on her neck, and they had repaired her neck, and she was in a brace for quite a few months. But she came home, and I was to resume normal life again, whatever that was, and things were different now between me and the guy that I was seeing, because he wasn't sure why I wasn't comfortable with him being up there with me. And there was a bunch of reasons, but the main reason was I talked about Lee a lot up there. Just I did with my daughters and my ex-husbands. Uh, my daughters, my first husband, and Ron, he was there. But it was just my...
Hi, Ron. Hi, Rick.
It was just my time up there where I felt close to Lee for some reason. I just felt...
I'll admit, I did send my energy to what was going on, and I sent it more to all the kids, so it probably surrounded you more than I could do at that time. I would constantly watch her updates just to make sure that she was okay, but I could feel it too. Mm-hmm. It was almost like when I would meditate, I could feel and listen and hear things that were going on with her. So I felt that everything. I instantly felt the release when you knew she was going to be okay. Mm-hmm. That there was some damage that she would have to go through for the rest of her life, but it was almost audible to a certain point, and it was really strange, because there were parts of me that were, why do you want to be involved in this? But then the other parts of me that are connected just said, you need to know. So I think
so she ended up getting out of the hospital, and we were resuming life, and then
things were
going not so good with the guy that I was seeing, because I was talking about Lee and this connection all the time.
And me, not so much. I was either going to move, or the person I was seeing was going to be moving up here. And plans were being made. Because I was at a final place. And then I started hearing from my son a lot more during this time. And he was really going through some pretty heavy stuff in at that time, his current relationship, and things were really getting really rocky. And I think we even started kind of developing a little bit more of the friendship that we once had, because as much as we had beat the crap out of each other, there was still a foundation built with the friendship we had. And in that friendship, which, people tell you to disconnect, stop talking to them, all of these things. If you never build a foundation for communication in this connection, you will suffer in such a way that it makes no sense. The connection doesn't warrant you to have to be everything else, but it does warrant the way that you need to communicate to understand where you're connected. Somehow, some way, we started being somewhat civil in our messages. When she started texting, because I
Do
really
you?
did care about what was Kelsey was going through, and we
I
were
had called him. I just remembered this, and I know you'll remember. I had actually talked him into coming over to talk to me at one point. He came over, sat at the table, and what did I do? I played him all of the arguments that I had been recording with this guy. I played him for Lee. Yeah, I did that. I did do that. I did do that.
gotta go.
Right. Because I was trying to say, explain this. Explain why I'm trying to explain this to somebody else and they don't get it. Explain this to me, Lee.
I didn't see the point. I
And
mean, I wasn't doing
he
such a
was
thing.
listening to me. He was listening to me argue with somebody else, and he
That
was
she was sleeping with.
and he was confessing his love for me on these tapes. He was telling me how much he loved me and cared for me and all this shit. And then I was telling him about this connection with Lee. It was a mess. But
And,
Lee got mad.
Well,
He called
it
while you
really
were there.
wasn't.
You got up and left.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to invade. I mean, that's their connection. That's their relationship. I didn't really need to be involved.
Who
So,
does that?
I mean, I was her friend. I was trying to be there as her friend. I understood,
Well, I wasn't very bright.
Well,
We would never coach
we've seen
anybody to do
people where they
that.
get to the point where you can come back and you can be civil with one another, but
I was too civil.
the communication still lacking.
There may have been a little bit of manipulation there. I don't know.
Yeah. Gee, I wonder who manipulates.
That was crazy. Anyway, let's move on.
Okay, so I think it's maybe a week or two, 2 weeks later.
About 2 or 3 weeks after that.
My son is having really
when
deep
we got
issues.
through the arguments for that.
And I remember I think you had texted me early on, and then I texted you back. You didn't respond. And then I think when he was leaving, you text again, and I told you I was sitting there.
I left. He left my house at 11, like 25.
Not me.
No,
The
other guy left my house like at 11:25 this night. 11:25. I'll never forget it because my phone rang at 11:30. Right at 11:30.
After you text.
I had text. And for you to call after a text, for you to text after a text was rare, but for you to call after a text, I stood over the sink and I held my phone like I knew if I didn't answer it, the ringer was gonna stop. It was gonna go to voicemail, but I felt frozen. I didn't know what to do. So I just hurried up and answered the phone. I was like, "Hello." I was trying to be cool. "Hello," right? And you were like, "Hey." And I said, "Yeah, what's going on?"
And it was really surreal because at this point, Christian my son, was really going through some things in the current relationship that he was having. And it was really strange because it kept going, well, if you're going to lie, you're going to go through this and you're going to do that. And of course, it started to sound like I was talking about the person and I could relate to what his girlfriend was experiencing, but not what he was experiencing. So what better way than to bring him to the source of what this probably was?
All I heard was, "Can we come over?"
That's
what I
the
heard.
part you heard, but
I know you
we
said
did
other
talk.
stuff.
Yeah, we talked about what he was going through, and
Yeah,
then
we did.
you suggested it, and then I said, "Okay, we're on our way."
Yeah.
And I remember pulling into the driveway and going, I don't know if this is a good idea. And then, of course, my son, "Oh, come on, Dad, let's just go. And we'll be here for a little bit."
Cameron was there. Oh my God.
And so
Cameron saw him. Oof.
yeah, we really missed
Cameron
each other.
came downstairs and saw Lee, and it was over. Oh, he was so happy.
But
He
anyway,
was so happy.
let's get to the.
So, Lee sat across the room on the love seat. Me and his son sat on the couch. And his son began to talk about his relationship with this other girl.
To her.
To me. And we began comparing stories. Relationship stories. However, the other part of my relationship was sitting across the room. And I was telling him how I feel, and he was telling me how he feels, and what we were going through very similar things. And Lee would say something.
Really smart ass kind of like, because I mean,
Yeah,
we're talking about my pain.
Lee would open his mouth, and his son would leave the room. Like, that's the kind of shit I'm talking about. That's it.
That he was experiencing.
That's what she does to me when I talk to her about how I feel. That's what she does to me. Exactly what you're doing to her. And I was like, well, this is going to be a good visit.
Well, it really started to get intense, because then I started to feel the energy of final.
And my pain.
And I was listening to his human relationship, to what she was saying that this relationship was. And I still knew that you still see this as a relationship. Mm-hmm. And I knew that there was something more, and it didn't warrant any of that type of behavior that was there prior.
Yeah.
But then I started to hear little things about how she was telling the truth. Mm-hmm. Now, mind you, she had tried to explain this to me before, but I didn't really grab the concept that what she meant was, I'm telling all the bullcrap I did. I'm telling why I did it. I couldn't hear that before, but I was listening, and that part started to sink in. Whereas my son was doing the same thing, she was doing the same thing too, and I was listening, and I was being both my son's girlfriend and being her ex. And I was getting really uncomfortable and really irritated over what I was hearing, because there's nothing quite like being put back into a place where you wanted out in the first place. But what ended up happening is this went on for hours.
Yeah, it was like 2:30 when you guys left.
When I had to take my son back to school, which is about an hour away from there, hour and a half away from there.
We hugged.
And
I'll never forget that. He hugged me.
And it wasn't...
His son hugged me first, and then he hugged me before we left.
Because I was compassionate.
That's it. If you're listening to this and you're not watching, because we know that happens, he just made a face.
So, I'm driving my son up to school, and he's asking me, why do you treat her this way? Why are you doing this? And, I said, well, you already know why I'm doing this. And he says, but Dad, here you are trying to help me heal this one, and you can't heal that one. I said, this is different. And he said, different how? And I explained to him how it was different. And then he said to me, he said, well, if you're connected that way, why should any of that matter now? She wants to tell you the truth. I said, no, she doesn't. I said, yes, she does. He says, if you really probably listened to her, she'd probably tell you the truth, Dad. And I don't know what it is that's stopping you from listening to the truth, but maybe you should just listen.
3:00 in the morning, my phone rings.
So, no, because I still argued it. And I said,
you
know what?
You dropped him off. Then there was no argument.
Well, no, there wasn't really an argument.
Right.
I still hadn't even said in myself to say, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And I said, I'll call you and thank you for allowing us to come there. And, I'll mention a little bit about what Christian said, but I wasn't willing to go back into the lion's den or into that spider web again. So I said, I gave you that much, and then it was late, and I listened, but I still had huge reservations, because here I am, and I even said this to her. I remember distinctly saying to you, I came all this way to be in the truth, to be with you, and you can't tell me why you did this. And now you want to tell me the truth, but you can't answer that. And it was a fight. I remember it was.
But you called on your way back.
That's what I'm talking about on the way back. I'm talking about the call.
As soon as he dropped his son off, he called me, and it was around 3:30, something like that, in the morning, and we talked until he pulled in to his driveway.
Well, my garage.
To his place, yes.
Yeah, with the fence and had to get through all the gates. But anyway, what was really, I'm with you.
I just pointed out the time.
Yes. So, what ended up happening from there, of course, was we ended up talking,
a
and
lot.
I started listening a little bit more, and gradually, over the next couple of weeks, um, I started to really start to feel that, okay, I can trust me. If I can trust me, maybe I can listen to what she says and find
We
out.
were still seeing other people. He was still seeing her. I was still seeing him. The night that he called me after dropping his son off, we got off the phone at 5 something, and the other guy showed up at my house at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Not so much me. I didn't really
And
see.
he was saying, "What's going on with you? Why you look like you've been up all night?" And I was honest. I didn't care at that point what I had to lose. I said, "I've been up." Lee was here with his son, and we talked to about 2:30, and then I've been on the phone with him all night. So that started a sort of a downward type of "you're never going to get over this guy" conversation. Um,
That he was there, I wasn't, and
mm.
that was fine. I was good with that. I was like, okay, well, I guess you got to deal with that. That's pretty much how I was still acting.
And
But
we
I
were
was,
emailing at that point.
you know
The
what?
next couple weeks, we were emailing a lot.
Yeah, but there were a lot of some things I think were pretty
There was
deep.
still a final message. I'm never going to come back into that. I'm not ever going to do that type of email. I love being your friend, and I think this is a great transformation you're making. I just wish that all this wouldn't have happened, because I really believed in this connection, and
I
I
said
can
it.
never be in that.
I said you didn't love me enough to give me your truth. So why in the hell are you even thinking this could go anywhere else? I
Mm-hmm.
think it's great you're telling me the truth, and I love you for it. But I wasn't worthy of it then. Why would I be worthy of it now? There were a lot of things that I kept saying that I had to say to myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that really planted a lot of seeds in her for her to find out those things for herself.
It was a very scary time because I knew I had lost him, but I had his friendship. And remember back when he had mine?
Yeah, way back when.
Way back when.
Um,
But we will.
we're going to continue this, and
Not now.
no, nice try.
Sorry.
So, but we do
Soon.
want to leave you with one last thing. One last thing that I really want everybody to really pay attention to, because this message is probably the strongest you'll ever get. Don't run from this connection. If you give each other permission to run, you're not doing what this union wants, and you're not paying attention to the word itself. Connection. You either are disconnected in yourself to give yourself permission to disconnect, and if you think that it's hell, welcome to the club. We love you. Welcome to our family.
See you soon. They're going to kill you.